our second Facilities Fundamentals workshop. Today's workshop, Everyday Sustainability for Home and Work, is facilitated by Preston Jacobson from the Office of Sustainability. Preston earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Environmental Sciences with a focus in hydrology and sustainability from Western Carolina University, WCU. His previous work includes sustainability analyst at Haywood Community College from 2010 to 2013, hybrid/alternative fuels and biodiesel production instructor at Haywood Community College from 2011 to 2013, a field technician for WATR, a nonprofit serving Southwest North Carolina from 2009 to 2010, and GIS technician for WCU from 2007 to 2009. He has been serving as a sustainability manager here at the University of Tennessee, maintaining the Office of Sustainability on campus since 2013. On the side, Preston also owns a regional weather forecasting service, Local Yoco Weather, serving Southwest North Carolina since 2007. Yes, this is the same person with localyocoweather.com on his bumper, so you'll see him around town, and now you'll have the chance to meet him. Ladies, please welcome Preston Jacobson.
Such a formal introduction, I don't know if I can keep up with that. Thank you all for coming. When I give presentations and lectures, I love for people to interact with me, so you don't need to raise your hand, just stop me talking and just ask questions. Typically, I'll fly through a lot of slides, so please, again, stop me, and at the end, we'll hold questions. First off, we're going to start with a little icebreaker. This is always a fun part for me. Who here can answer this question? And it's more common than you think. Obviously, it's the biggest crop in the U.S., but it's in front of us every day. We walk across it, we maintain it, we admire it. So there are other hints up there too. It's the largest crop in the U.S. with no nutritional, economic, industrial, or ecological value. Any guesses?
Grass.
I thought I was going to hold y'all up for a few minutes. So there goes my PowerPoint. It is grass. It's something that we need to take into account. A lot of what we do here is more so for the image that we're trying to achieve. So keep in mind that sometimes grass still can be beautiful, even not in an aristocratic, lawn-maintained setting. So this is the outline we'll be going through today. Again, I'll kind of fly through all this, and I hope you all will interact as we move through. But I wanted to start you out with somewhat of an introduction to the environmental movement. You know, we need to more so inspire you to become sustainability champions across campus. For without that, what are you doing and to what purpose? We can teach you how to be sustainable, but again, if you're not inspired to be, you're more than likely just to stop after day one. I would hope that you would continue that conversation on with others and hopefully inspire them. If not, create a talking point in some point of culture here on campus. So the history of environmentalism is better understood with more so the actions that brought up the movement. Back all the way to the 1830s, when America was more so being established, environmentalism is rooted back in American philosophy. One of the early influential environmentalists, of course, is Henry David Thoreau. We then tapped into somewhat American pragmatism in the 1860s. John Muir was highly influential. The National Parks and Wildlife Reserve were created. Sierra Club, which is highly influential both in the work that we do day in, day out here in Eastern Tennessee and more so the nation, was founded in 1892. And we're moving forward into the 20th century. The national parks were then established. However, 2 world wars somewhat stifled economic, or rather environmental movement. Mainly because we were having to divert resources to war. We were losing our population. Obviously, there was contention between a lot of nations, so that held up a lot of the discussion and talking points. But back in 1948, that kind of slowed down. In some regard, the Denora death fog, which killed 8 people, was somewhat good and obviously bad in that regard, but it brought the environmental movement back to the forefront of topic. There are videos, links in here, we won't watch them for the sake of time, but essentially this was a smog created in a valley in Pennsylvania based off a silver mill, if you will, that was producing silver mine ore, and it just created this death fog that lasted for 12 days until the weather pushed it out. But people were now aware of what they were doing locally with their industry. Fast forwarding a little bit, we had the WPA enacted in 1964, and then the Cuyahoga River Fire in 1969 in Ohio was another kind of momentous movement forward, in that now water quality was being looked at because literally the river was on fire. Now granted, this was not the only one at the time. This is more so in a larger city where the media started covering these events. So again, it got pushed among the local, regional, and national newspaper. So Silent Spring was a very, very influential book published in 1962 by Rachel Carson. And then the EPA was established in 1970, leading to the first Earth Day in 1970 as well. Tomorrow, April 22nd, we celebrate its 45th year. So it's been around for a while. It has ebbed and flowed. It has waned and somewhat brought back, especially with the topic of climate change. So fast forwarding again into the 21st century, the Senate passed an aid bill to restore the Everglades in 2000. Minor work to begin with, but that kind of started the topic of climate change overall because the Everglades are very susceptible to sea level rise and decline. The Arctic sea ice drops to an all-time low in 2007, again further exacerbating the talking point of climate change. The EPA celebrates its 40th year in 2010. There are a lot of good recognition points around that. By 2025, back in 2012, Obama established the new fuel efficiency standards. So by 2025, 54.5 miles per gallon is mandatory on all new cars. And then back in last year, March 2014, the IPCC released its fifth and most alarming climate assessment report. There were a lot of debates following that, but also a lot of action gained from that too. A lot of people were more inspired to do more work towards environmentalism. We've heard about climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it. It's a very contentious debate. A lot of sides have supporting documents saying that they're wrong, they're right, et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, who cares? My thing is, yes, climate change is real, global warming is happening, it is anthropogenic, caused by humans. But really, what is the point of debating all this if we're not taking action locally? We need to defend local and live local, or live local, defend local rather, because if we can't come to a solution here in Knoxville, then again, what's the point about debating something that's 1,500 miles away as that point source? So I encourage everyone I come across to focus here in Knoxville, Eastern Tennessee, if you must go to a larger scale, and let that be the starting point for the movement to grow elsewhere. There are a lot of dots to fill in. There are a lot of great spots here in the Southeast that are very sustainable, whether it be Asheville, here in Knoxville, Chattanooga, but the in-betweens need to be filled in. We need to have a cultural uprising and not just a few of our intellect and higher influential people pushing us towards climate change. It needs to be a mass population movement. So again, let's focus more locally, let's see the benefits locally, and that will almost push out to the world in itself. So how do we define sustainability? There are many ways to define it. We always reference the Brundtland Report back in '87, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. But here at UT, we take that and we kind of condense it a little bit because we all love visuals. You know, here in America, we can't walk across the street unless you have a visual saying don't walk. You can't say that in text. So here's our visual. It is defined based off the previous definition as environmental, economic, social is what we call a triple bottom line. Here in Tennessee, we tend to focus in a different manner, economic, environmental, social. And whether that's good or bad, I'll leave that up to you, but I think it's good. Here in our culture on Eastern Tennessee, and specifically in Knoxville, specifically at UT, we have somewhat of a conservative right-wing thought process, and that's okay. But we can show them the light, so to speak, by saying, hey, green is truly green. So our office focuses on economic environmental opportunities. So when we say we're going to offset this many trees, this many greenhouse gas emissions, it's always at the back end of our argument. First and foremost, it's we're going to give you $1 million savings. Now they're drawn into attention, and oh, by the way, we're going to offset 100 metric tons. So we're still meeting our goals. I will say that we do somewhat lack, my office in particular, on the social aspect. So we fit more into this kind of category, this sector here. But that's not to say that social work is not being done on campus. There are other entities that have been established, and we let them continue on their work, and we try to provide them funding when possible. But honestly, with the resources that we have here at UT and or the stakeholders across the community, we should be focusing on the economic environmental picture. So there are a lot of benefits. As I mentioned, green is green. The benefits range from healthier living, financing, and community engagement. Some healthier living aspects are, of course, the natural material use. There's no chemicals in those. And open building design. It pretty much takes you out of, I'm inside of a building, I'm constrained to this job, it's feeding into my soul, I'm never going to get out of it. We bring the outside in, it actually encourages a healthier workplace. And you are what you eat. I'm a big proponent of that. Granted, I don't eat healthy all the time, but again, it's more so awareness is the picture here we're trying to capture. And this, of course, is where I focus heavily on. I just tend to work my mind more in a business mindset, but we have a lot of opportunities when we look at it through a sustainable lens, whether that be reduced maintenance costs from using a LEED certified or standard building to sustain return on investment. A lot of people are stuck, especially in the past 10 years, well, more so 8, with the economic downturn for short-term cycle gains. I'm in trouble, I'm under the gun, I need to get help now. So let's get these short-term cycle gains going. But when we're looking back on it, we had wished we had focused more on long-term cycle gains. And we can talk more about that, but again, for the sake of time, we'll move forward. Community engagement, I think, is probably the biggest impact about being sustainable, one of the bigger benefits, especially in the day and age where Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, yik yak, I could go on and on and on. I'm learning new things every day from the students. It's taken us away from the interaction with people. And so sustainability kind of not necessarily forces that, but it provides an opportunity to where it seems a lot better to go that route than staying stuck behind a computer screen and or isolating ourselves in silos across campus. So again, I'm getting more to the sense of community. We feel a part of the movement and not just one peg in the wheel. Who's heard this term before? I would kind of hope so, it being the 45th year of the Earth Day celebration. Carbon footprint has been around, that notion, for roughly 20 years. Has anybody ever calculated their carbon footprint? There are all sorts of calculators out there. No, it's okay. We can go through that exercise if you'd like. I can send you a link. Be it the EPA has a great link that we can use on this slide, or we can just send you some other calculators. Again, they all use the same common denominator, and that is CO2e. But essentially, for those who not understanding, a carbon footprint is essentially how green or ungreen we are using greenhouse gas emissions as that common denominator. And really what we're using here is CO2e equivalent. Basically what we're saying is these 6 gases, what do they compare to generally in 100 years to carbon dioxide? So this is a great way to thread all the other gases that we know contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, methane in particular, to tie it back to CO2e, something that we can talk about from a single discussion point. So nationally, granted, this is 14 years old, but it still resonates today. The data, rather, is 14 years old. But we're looking here at a trend where housing, travel, and food are the biggest contributors to our greenhouse, or our carbon footprint, rather. Housing is tough. Square footage has risen across America. Back in 2008, 2008 we had 2 cars per household. Now we have 3 on average. Back in 2011, it cost $6,000 per year to maintain a single car. Now it's $10,000. Contribute that to inflation, what have you, it's on the rise. And those stats are only a year old. So we're seeing that mainly it's the family setting and desire to have more is really the issue here. Again, housing and travel. Here at UT, it's always going to be transportation. And that's something we're working on, but more so right now, we're focusing on buildings and energy consumption. We have a climate neutrality plan, or goal rather, to be climate neutral by 2061. So whether that be good for me in a career, I have 40 more years to work on that. But mainly it's because we have such a huge infrastructure, 600 odd acres, multiple institutes, 24,000 people flowing through annually, that it takes that amount of time. My previous role, we had 2030, but I was again 5 times lesser of an institution in scale. So yes, 2061 does seem long and daunting and down the line, but we have to act now to make that a reality. So kind of taking a step back and looking globally, we see that again, housing is eating up that picture in terms of carbon footprint, but are we surprised that we are one of the leaders, or the leader rather, in the nation or the world?
No.
It's sickening, yes, but to change one's perception and then cultural reality is tough. So again, it's not my job to say what you're doing is wrong. The Gloom and Doom messages never were. It's more so to say, hey, I understand, I live the same lifestyle as you, but hey, there are better ways. And oh, by the way, you'll save money, you'll interact with more people, and if anything, you'll feel better from it, whether you're eating better, living better, etc. And I guess the real reason why you all are here is you want to understand how to be more sustainable, both in where you work here at UT and or at home. And what I'm going to give you is only about 1% of the opportunities out there. So what I would encourage you to do is go to our website, environment.utk.edu. I have some business cards we can hand out later. Interact with us, and we'll also help you provide opportunities. In the sign-up sheet you have, there will be emails going out with other opportunities to become more sustainable, future links, the carbon footprint, etc., and also to continue coming to these workshops. So of course, the biggest thing is always the hidden ones. Check the faucets and pipes for leak. A small drip from a warm faucet can 20 gallons of water a day. Does that mean anything to us here in Eastern Tennessee? Not so much, where we get 54 inches of rain annually. But let's go out to California.
This month.
That's about so, but if you're an allergy sufferer, I'm kind of excited about it, right? It keeps the pollen down. It's going to explode here today, I guess. But no, here locally, yes, it's not that much of a concern, but just again, wrap yourself in the larger picture. If we can maintain our local sustainability efforts, it will only benefit us, whether it be generationally down the line and or someone transplanting from Knoxville, say to the southwest where it's a huge concern. But mainly the toilets is always where you're going to find your biggest leak. Add some food color in your tank, see if it starts bleeding into your bowl, and you'll know instantly you have a leak. A lot of your utilities will provide you a leniency period if you can identify the leak. Let's say that your monthly charge went up by 2 or 3 times, and you call and say, what is going on? You know, you're trying to take my money from me, it's you, I'm blaming you, and say, well, have you checked your leaks and your faucets and such? We'll wipe that off if you can call us back and say that you've reduced the flow of water, you found the leak. You don't have to
normally they make you, we just had our main water line busted from the road to the house, but after $2,000 later and we showed a receipt, they knocked the $300 water bill off. But
and it's something.
Yeah.
$2,300 is a lot of a difference, but it's something, right?
yeah,
And they have these accounts set up, so don't be afraid to ask. They'll probably never tell you. If I was a business person leading that charge, I probably wouldn't do it either, but just ask for it. Say, hey, I had a leak, I'm trying to get some leniency, take off my bill, can you? And they technically should say yes. So when you step outside, it's spring, everybody's wanting to plant more into their yards, add a layer of mulch around your plants. If not, add a layer of smaller flowers and such to kind of keep that area for your bigger plants shaded so water evaporation is not as much. And if you're going to water, put it down in the early morning or late afternoon. Also, if you would like to understand that you're probably putting too much more water out than you should, lay a tuna can or anything that will hold 2 inches of water out in your yard. Past that point, you're done, you need to stop watering. What you really should be doing is a deep soak of your roots and not just a glance of water on the top that can actually burn your grass. I was sidestepping there, but again, go back to your tank and your toilets, put a plastic bottle or a float booster in your toilet tank that costs no more than $5 at Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, etc. And what that does is it displaces the water, so you're not using that volume every time. And over a period of a year, you'll see a good contribution reduction. But again, long-term cycle gain mentality is what you need to get your head around. So what if I'm saving $1 or $2 here and there every month? I could go buy that in a vending machine down the hall, but exacerbate that, expand that rather to an annual mindset and or add many more of these practices, and you could be saving hundreds of dollars a year. So energy conservation is something we focus here in Sustainability Office currently, and will be so doing for probably the next year. It's more so because the state is pushing us. We have great energy technologies in place. We are conserving and saving and avoiding a lot of energy consumption. There's always more work to do. At your home, who's heard the word energy vampires? Essentially, when you leave this is always a great question to ask a group. what do you think your biggest energy consumer is in your house? Fridge? What else? It's not right, I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep going until someone says it right. AC, no. Are you thinking water heater? Are you thinking your laundry? A dishwasher? Those are all wrong. But really what the biggest consumer is your DVR. You wouldn't think it, but it's your DVR. I don't have one, but I know most people do, because I tend to watch my Netflix on the PS3, and I'm sure that's my biggest consumer, because I can just hear the fan going. But the DVR is always on, always going. It's a computer that's systematically trying to find trends of your viewing patterns. And so what that is if you turn that off, it resets, you're calling DirecTV, you're calling whatever provider you have, and you're having to work it over again. So of course you leave it on. But that is the biggest power consumer in your home, because you only use your AC intermittently throughout the day. Your fridge is always on, yes, but they're highly energy efficient. And so forth for your dishwasher, your laundry, again, intermittently throughout the month. So use your microwaves and toasters to cook warm leftovers. Yes, I understand you put an old biscuit in the microwave, it's gonna taste horrible, so it's okay to use the oven, but if you can, toss something in there. And for those that eat a lot of pizza, for instance, toss a glass of water in there too. That'll help soften up the way it cooks and won't feel as rubbery. I say that mainly because I love pizza and I can't stop eating it, so always finding leftovers in the fridge there. It's summertime, it does get hot. Maybe if you wanted to, possibly go outside and grill your food. Again, that would take away from the energy consumption in your oven and your stovetop. This is, I think, more so common sense. People tend to forget about it, especially when they look at design. Aesthetics tend to win out over efficiency a lot of the time. That's unfortunate. But if you were to find someone, even at Lowe's or Home Depot, any of your major stores that can help you, they are now moving towards the trend of incorporating efficiency into aesthetics. So we're finding that the shades that would provide us the highest solar insolation are actually very appealing to the eye. So now you can more so focus on blocking that out, and or if you find that you have a cold morning in the winter, open the windows up, let your house become a minor greenhouse for the first few hours, close it, trap the heat as the sun moves across your house. Tune-ups are always good. What do y'all currently have your AC set on in the house? 67? Yeah. I call this month, what's that? Like a thermostat type? Okay.
Like you can turn them on and off.
Oh, yes, okay.
Right,
Intermittently turn those on. Yeah, that's a good way to jump it too. You might want to look at a moisture control. I don't know if you felt like your house is a little moist sometimes. Those tend to not necessarily take the moisture out of the air, they just cool it down quickly. So consider that. A drier house can cool and heat faster than a more moisture house. I don't know how to say that. More humid house. But typically we would like and or suggest people have their thermostat set to 72 or 74 degrees. That's hot, I know. My mother loves 66 degrees. And at some point you just lose the battle and you walk on for another fight. But that's typically where you'll find the best energy efficiency year in and year out, any given month of the year. Now, if you could, open your windows up and run that free weather, as I like to call it. I have literally cut my bill in half this past month with all the warm weather we've been having. But again, it's a pattern recognition. You have to understand that it's now time to close the windows. It's about to heat up. I've got cool air in the house. So what I'm trying to say along the way here is more so awareness. Be aware of your actions. Try to understand the consequences for everything that you do. It might not be bad, it might be good, but just be aware of what you're doing.
On your air conditioning, if you're going to be gone 12 hours that day, what do you recommend? I've read both kind of keep it at an even temperature, and I've read put it up and bring it back down when you get home.
Sure. I always boost mine up a few degrees and bring it back down. It's true, it can be more efficient if you were to keep it at that level, because it does take a lot to bring it back up and or to bring it back down. But my house is only, I think, 950 odd square feet, my apartment rather, so it's very small. I can do that. When you go into the 2,500 plus and you have sections of your house that are almost their own worlds, then it might be more beneficial to just kind of keep it level, but maybe raise it to the new norm of 72. But try it. You might find that 72 is quite comfortable. Humans are very funny in that we'll move from South Florida to Minnesota and we'll just curse to the wind, the cold, and we hate the snow. But then 3 years later, we're loving it. You know, we assimilate to our environments fairly rapidly. So you might find that 72 is actually worthwhile. Of course, you might have to maybe, you know, during the winter months, add a sweater to your kind of attire. You need to bring it back down, that kind of thing. But again, you adjust. If you're willing to adjust, you've already taken the best step moving forward to becoming sustainable. So again, just like the actions and steps to become sustainable, I'm only going to give you a sliver of what's available. The beautiful thing about sustainability, it's always evolving. It's never stagnant. We're always moving forward. That's part and why my job exists, because what we put in last year, 2 years from now, will need to be changed out to something better. And it's my job to find those solutions. So some of the transportation, because I kind of come from that sector or that kind of subject matter, of course, we've all seen electric hybrid vehicles. Soon to be self-driving cars. No, it's not from a science fiction book, even though I do love that genre. Self-driving cars are a reality. They will be coming down the pipe in the next 20 years. Will they be widely implemented like we see in a parking lot today with manual driving cars? Probably not, but in major urban cities, you'll see fleets start moving towards that, and then eventually the individual consumer will take that on. The idea being that they're more efficient in that if I have a car here and a car here, and we've all been there rushing to get to work, right, that every second counts, to where we leave, all of a sudden the light goes red, we have to stop. But what if we all moved at the same time and went through that light efficiently? And it's the same for everywhere. Just think about how much traffic would be negated by having self-driving cars, fuel efficiencies, et cetera, carpooling, it can go on and on and on. I, like most, probably are a little bit apprehensive of self-driving cars, but like I said, it's happening, the government's on board, they're putting programs in place. Some really cool things are electric generating tires. So much like the hybrid technology in the brakes, where they're able to generate electricity, we're now having it to where the rubber meets the road, no pun intended, and we're actually generating electricity. Same thing for our windows inside of cars. There are now transparent solar panels that are being put in. They're mainly for vertical footprints, where you have a skyscraper and it's sunrise and sunset, it hits that and it creates energy. Well, now they're implementing that in the new cars to where hopefully one day we're driving down the road and it's middle of July and you don't have to blast the AC because that sun is just beating down on you through the window. That insulation will actually be taken away, the infrared energy, and put into actual electricity. A hydrogen-powered tram is being rolled out, I guess, so to speak, here in Japan. Here this summer, so that'll be exciting to see play out. That's kind of a new fuel source that's being utilized. It's much more sustainable. Getting into buildings, cool roofs. I think they're both cool and man, you are cool, and also they are cool both in temperature. They're designed to increase solar reflectance and to decrease your thermal commitment. So basically you could talk about green roofs, literally putting a garden on top of your roof, to putting solar panels, that's blocking. There are even tactics out there to where they create a thermal insulating layer to where that only the air heats up between the outside film and the actual roofing material, pushing the hot air away. Here on campus, we are focusing a lot on geothermal energy. It's the idea of heat transfer. I pump in hot air into the ground, roughly 6 to 8 feet below, and being that the ground is held at 57 degrees constant at that depth and lower, we're able to take that hot air and replace it with cooler air through a heat exchange that comes into the house. Yes, it will not bring it up to the desired and or cool it to the desired temperature just from that alone. That shaves off 2/3 of the energy used initially to cool and heat. That's a big help. You see anywhere from 80, sometimes low as 60% energy savings when you just utilize that. And this can be done on the beach out in Wilmington where it roasts 110 degrees, to the mountaintops where it gets down to 20 below some winters. So geothermal has no issues in geography. If you're wanting to implement this at your house, we can talk later, all these technologies and or transportation, everything we talk about. It is costly, but remember, long-term cycle gains. There are a lot of rebates out there that many people are not aware of, and sometimes by design. A lot of industry tries to keep these opportunities at bay to continue with their products until that becomes obsolete. So keep that in mind too. We can't help you personally with more construction projects than just small little actions. Of course, solar power is big. The smart glass is also pretty cool. It essentially changes the amount of light that enters the building through physics that I cannot teach you today. As mentioned before, I'm more of a hydrology guy, not more of a pure science physicist. Stormwater management is huge and will be becoming more so Specifically here at UT, we are under the MS4 program, which is great. It pretty much means that anything over a half inch of rain per year, we have to mitigate and or reclaim to ensure that we don't have peak discharge, streams, pollutants running off, etc. This has highly been the case out in the Southwest where water is valued very highly, but more so here in East Tennessee, we're seeing that pollution is becoming an issue, and so we're working to rectify that. But it could be beautiful too. Rain gardens, bioretention cells, native grass meadows. These are things that are very appeasing to the eye that are also sustainable. Again, the biggest issue that people have is putting aesthetics into their daily life that are sustainable actions. And so there are opportunities out there that's just becoming aware. But here at UT, we have a snippet of what we're doing. These are what are deemed to be the more prominent, of course, I'm up there on the top, the more prominent organizations working towards environmentalism here on campus. Literally, there are 2 other slides we could follow this behind with more mentions and centers and stakeholders and partners. And those can be found on our website. But most people think we are it, but we're not. We have a lot of champions across campus. And even though we have 3, sometimes 5 people in my office any given year, I feel like I have 1,000 people working for us because of these entities, and a lot more money too. So an environmental snapshot real quick. We lead the SEC in game day recycling. We're second in the nation, but I would like to rectify that mention of second in the nation. Ohio State claims to be first, but they only capture their bowl, their stadium. We capture our data and we expand that to the tailgating areas. So if Ohio State were to do that, we estimate that they would be third or fourth. So technicality, we are second, but know that we are leading the nation in game day recycling. Just look how much recycled compost and materials we put back in 2014. It's 135 tons. Roll that back 5 years ago, and we were only doing 15-20%. Jay Price, our recycling manager, has done a tremendous job. He now has a zero waste coordinator helping him. So this is a very exciting thing. And I harp on that a lot because we are UT. And we do love our athletics to a fault sometimes, but we do love our athletics. I had to mention that. We are now done with coal burning on campus, so hooray on that one. You'll see the stacks coming down, the coal stacks coming down here next year sometime. We'll make announcements on that. We'll do some pretty videos and such. We have 2 electric vehicle charging stations on campus. They produce quite a bit of energy for us. We have a new solar array with another charging station going to top 11th Street Garage. That should be completed sometime this summer, I believe. So also LEED is a very big thing. It has been for the past 10 years, but honestly it's becoming the norm, which is very exciting. LEED, it used to be, let's bring out the masses and do a press event and do a ribbon cutting and all these exciting things. Now it's like, we got LEED again, cool. Some schools like Florida have 56 LEED buildings. We're working our way towards that. Granted, they're about 8 years ahead of us in their entire redesign for their master plan. We're now just going into that phase. That's why you see all this construction. But do know these buildings on campus are either LEED Standard or LEED Silver certified, and we are looking to pursue gold with the IMES Center, the Giants building. I always pronounce that wrong. So with all that in mind, I could spit out and sit on my soapbox up here and talk all day, but do y'all have any questions? I wanted to kind of have some dialogue to see if what you do at UT, if there's any interaction that we can have, opportunities. We have a lot of funding. We have a lot of enthusiastic people willing to help. So is there anything that we can talk about now? Any questions that I can answer?
I have an issue.
Issue.
That's probably the first few words out of everybody's mouth when they talk to me. It's okay.
And this drives me crazy. It can be 95 degrees outside, and I'm in my office with my heater on and a sweater, shivering, saying this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but then your neighbor is colder than the other parts of the building, right? It's always this kind of like hodgepodge of cool and hot.
The side that faces the south, they're burning up, they're sweating,
Yeah.
and my side, we're just over there.
What building are you in?
College of Nursing building.
College of Nursing.
But I hate, and I
Smack.
feel like such a waste. The cold air is blowing from the ceiling. I've got my heater full blast, the window's open,
No, I feel your frustration. Literally, I feel your frustration. I
But I
have
hate to
the,
have goosebumps all day long.
and of course you're not in tune to your work, and I get that. And that definitely hurts productivity. No, you have a champion for you working towards that. The Green Office program will roll out this fall, and what we're doing is going to be systematically phased across campus. What we're doing is we're going to send our staff out to every office. We'll do a quick assessment to see how green you are and or could be. We're gonna pat you on the back for saying, good job, you've done this so far, but hey, there's better ways. And in that, we'll have a very in-depth discussion, whether it be with you, your boss, or whoever needs to make the decisions on financial triggers. And we'll see how we can better your environment. Whether that be, I need more natural daylighting because these fluorescents are just killing me, they're a strain on my eyes, which is technically the case. Or it could be that we need more recycling, or my conditioning of air is messed up, we need to fix this. Because we see that as an energy hog. Where you see that as a discomfort, I see opportunity.
I
So,
see it as an energy hog too. I
Right.
feel bad. I'm like, I mean, it's just a huge waste, the AC and the heat.
She was one step away from typing the Snuggie.
right. And they're so fashionable, though, right? Yeah. No, the thing is, I think that before we put this program into place, it was more so people that knew of us and reached out to us. But hopefully this program will create awareness to where we exist on campus. We're here to help. So from the 1 to say 5% interaction of the population we have on campus, we think that might expand to 40%. And that will only exponentially increase. So know that this fall, we'll have something in place, but you're not going to wait till fall. I'll help you out after this meeting. We'll figure something out.
How can buildings like, we're really not a building, we're in the breezeway, we're in the freshman office, so we're in between the two buildings.
Yes.
People drive underneath us, people walk on top of us and Circle Park, but our office can be at any point, it can be really cold, it can be really hot, but then down the hallway in graduate admissions, it's like a sauna in there all the time, it's hot. So how can it be so different in the same area?
Oh, okay, this is fun.
I mean, because we have our maintenance guy that takes care of things, but it's always different.
And we're more often than not our division, our department rather, we are playing catch up. But really it's more so an awareness factor, and we're actually fixing that this year. We need to know at an instantaneous point in time when that issue occurred, or else we're playing a catch up, we're never finding that point source. So for instance, we're now sub-metering all of our buildings on campus, whereas before they were 4 or 5 grouped to 1 meter. So if we did an energy retrofit project on one building, we might not see the results until a month later, and then could we scratch our head and say that it was really that one building? So now we're able to know, and that will only get deeper. We'll go floor to floor, room to room. And so eventually we'll come to you and say, hey, the issue was fixed. What issue?
One year we were burning up.
Yeah.
Burning up. There was no air. And when they finally came, they had cleaned the ductwork, left the balloon, whatever that they blew
Yeah.
up in it. So we were getting no airflow at all.
It was blocking the actual flow.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
hot. There was nothing coming, so.
And it's things like the Green Office Program. I hate to kind of play politician up here and just say this is my answer for everything. It always depends. But really what it is we need to be more in communication. And I'll hand you out some contact and business cards. And if you don't call the one call over at Facility Services, you can also call our office and we'll get you to the right people. Granted, we are getting a lot better at our response time, but do know that because of that, we're also upgrading a lot of things on campus. We have what's called a green revolving fund, to where we took money, put it to the side, and said for every project that we save energy on campus, we'll garner those savings back into this fund for a period of 5 years. Chris Amino was very, very nice for him to do that to us. Typically, he does not have to. But basically, we can take $350,000 and turn that to $848,000 in 5 years. Some schools use millions of dollars, but we're starting out small. But doing that, we can fund projects much quicker than having to go through the rigmarole of all that paperwork.
Would it be economically feasible to retrofit existing buildings for geothermic?
We'll just put you in the bubble. Yeah. For geothermal.
Yes.
Actually, that's a great question. No, you'll see the QEP now is highly focusing on experiential learning. But in facility, that's what we are. When we work with students, we put them to work, we work with them so they gain that experience. It's funny you mentioned that. Our steam plant was looked at geothermal opportunity by students, and we said we'd love to see the idea. So we gave them a chunk of change, 20 grand, from the green fee. If you're not aware, $10 per student per semester goes through the green fee. We accrue $760,000 a year. So anyways, we gave them some money to do a study. They found that it took 24 years for the return on investment because boring underneath an existing structure is highly expensive. But we didn't want to stop there. Students can be students, right? They can either drop the ball, be unaware, what have you. So we then paid another firm to confirm those, results, and it was proven to be 24 odd years. So we avoided that. But from here on out, we
Yeah,
will.
new buildings.
New buildings, yes. For
Yeah.
instance, Sorority Village, geothermal. West Campus Development was looked at geothermal, but because of the structure of the geography, the bed, if you will, was not conducive. So we're really finding other opportunities in transporting steam around that area. But do know that we are heavily focused on energy efficiency, and maybe from an environmental standpoint, sure, but I mean, money sings and money will win out. So. Okay, well, great. If y'all have any more questions, again, environment.utk.edu is always a great source year in and year out. I would highly encourage y'all seem to be a free lunch crowd to begin with. You're here, you're talking to me because I'm just the best speaker of the world, I understand that. Thursday is our Earth Day celebration event, even though Earth Day's tomorrow. We found students really like Thursday for some reason. So we're celebrating on Thursday over at the amphitheater. I mean, food, veggie burgers, games, everybody gets a t-shirt, swag. I mean, you name it, we got it. We got music, we got people showing the technologies that I'm speaking to. So we encourage you to come out 10 a.m. to roughly, I think, 4 p.m. We'll kind of wind down later in the day. Beyond that, we have 20 odd events this month that people are probably not aware of. So always check our
And
website
that's on
out.
the website.
Yeah, always check our website.
Can we ask one question?
Sure.
What does LEAD stand for?
From my understanding, it's leadership in environmental economic design. It might be the economic environmental switch, but I do know those are the 4 contributors. Basically, it's saying that you have a sustainable building. What would be 20 years for traditional building life, we're going to go 40. Typically, and oh, by the way, your maintenance costs were $500,000. We're looking at 100. It's drastically different, and I think the design's a lot cooler. I mean, look at music. You wouldn't think it though, but Ayers is also a LEED Silver building too, so you can renovate and come on the back end for an historical setting.
The School of Architecture is really moving as quickly as possible towards really pushing those designs.
Oh, we love it. Yeah, there's students that come out of there. It's frustrating sometimes because we are in a college setting. We move at sometimes at snail's pace, and students are just left field thinkers, idealistic thinking. But we love to hear what's coming out of, especially landscape architecture. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, they're
very
very.
encouraging. Sustainability is not a buzzword anymore. It feels like. Will it die off? I hope not. But it's to you all to put that to action and to help us out across campus. So if anything, please be our champion, and we'll talk more after this and/or email for some suggestions. Yeah, Linda.
You mentioned rebates.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know about them,
Mhm.
and it's the company's desire maybe not to advertise them as much. Can you give some examples
Mhm.
of,
Sure.
utilities and companies that should be offering something that we could add more pressure to, or?
I'll step back just real quick and say this. It's not necessarily the companies that are keeping that promotion at bay, it's more so their competitors, the industry of, petroleum,
And
for
the IRS
instance.
also gives you a rebate depending on what you do for your house that's energy efficient. You can
Yeah.
claim up to like 30% of the
Who's
cost.
that?
The IRS on your taxes, depending
Yeah,
on,
maximum of 30% or $150,
Yeah.
whichever is
you know,
higher.
for whatever you bought that was
Cash
qualified
Yeah.
for energy efficient. I do know that.
But no, if you were to call TVA, they'll have a list ready to go, if not top of their head, and we can provide that too. But typically, solar has a big rebate right now. Energy efficiency products, energy starving products rather. Certain materials that are being now deemed to be energy efficient by the EPA, insulation, that kind of thing is very heavy into that. New construction, zero waste homes can get a rebate if you were to build to that maximum zero waste efficiency. And also from things like if you have a plot of land, I know many of my cohorts across the nation, or my colleagues rather, they have sizable lots to their yard, and they actually keep it forest. If they were just to every now and then cull out and make sure that it's properly managed, they get a rebate on their, or more so deduction on their taxes rather. So. And there are a lot of people, and if I'm not the one, there are about 5 professors I can think of right now, Dr. Bill Park, for instance, et cetera, that can help you identify these too. So again, I'm not the only one on campus. There are hundreds of us working to make this a more stable place to live, learn, and work. All you gotta do is just be aware and reach out. Let's talk. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.